This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something.
Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
The next question. This is high-level competitive stuff here.
This is your journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single leap of faith. Leader Fan Radio Network. And KFAN.com. 2 minutes and 8 seconds past the hour, 3 o'clock. Central Daylight Saving Time. Bumper to Bumper Show is live local. It's on the air on this beautiful Monday afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. I am the host of the program, former Ink Stain Wretch newspaper of the Twin Cities. My name is Dan Barreiro. Guardsy is the producer of the show, back for the first time in a while. He's been busy with some his college basketball play-by-play duties, and then he had some other personal things that he had to attend to. Welcome back to the program. The next Gopher women's game in the... What's the name of this tournament again?
WBIT.
WBIT is Thursday, is that correct?
Thursday, 7 o'clock against Gonzaga.
So you're going to probably need Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday off as a result.
Well, I am off starting Wednesday for spring break.
You're out. Oh, are you seriously?
Yeah, it's going to be another kind of a magic show. Wednesday to Thursday to Friday to next week in San Antonio, Davie.
I'm off starting Friday, so yeah.
So we got Final Four stuff next week, too.
Right.
So... it's a little bit of a magic show and a magic carpet ride.
Are you? Where is the Final Four this year? New Orleans?
The men's is in San Antonio, Davie.
San Antonio, Davie.
Yeah.
And you're going, right?
I will be there.
You are going.
Radio Row, yes,
sir.
So
you'll be, and then hopefully getting the usual cavalcade of big names to perhaps join you while you're there. Is that the idea?
I was texting with our guy Charlie Barker today.
This is the first. You haven't gone the last few years, have you?
I went last year in Phoenix.
You did?
Yes.
Was I gone then, too?
You were gone. That's why we do it this way.
Yeah, it makes sense.
We plan the work and work your plan.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah. But Phoenix had been the first time in a while.
No Bill Walton, though. That's the hard part.
No Bill Walton, no John Thompson.
That's true. Yeah, John Thompson.
Yeah, we had some beauties.
Sure did. Well, there's still... The show must go on, as I'm sure both of them would agree. And I'm sure you will be able to put together a very good guest lineup. We're going the distance today, I believe, until 6:30 tonight. Johnny Athletic is a Monday regular. You tell me that he is going to join tomorrow. Is that correct?
Also spring break related.
Okay, fair enough.
So he's going to join tomorrow.
So Johnny tomorrow. I've got a lot to catch up on with him. So I'm looking forward to that visit. I was loaded for today because I'd forgotten until you reminded me that he needs to be on tomorrow's program. We are not guest free today, though. Our old friend Chris Carter will join. This is sort of that annual Salvation Army food drive that he's front and center involved with, and we'll give you details on that. But as I said, been the last several years, he's joined us for said event, and he is scheduled for 5:30 tonight, and it's always, I think, pretty entertaining and pretty interesting with CC because he has never lost his ability to be very opinionated on a number of significant subjects, many of them involving his former football team, the Minnesota Vikings. So it's Chris Carter at 5:30 today. We've got a done as to get to. We've got a bumper seal of approval that we will issue today as well. The Bradshaw and Bryan KFAN text line is open at 64686, and texts are already coming in as we speak. The deed is done. I believe the University of Minnesota has confirmed the hiring of the next men's basketball coach. As expected, no major surprise here. Niko Medved is the man. He's one of us. And he will be presented officially and publicly during a press briefing tomorrow. Is that correct?
Tomorrow at noon.
And apparently there's a decent chance that he will also join us later in the afternoon as well. Niko Medved. I would argue that it went it was almost a fantasy finish in the big dance for Niko and his Colorado State club from a Gopher standpoint.
Yes.
I'm certain they didn't enjoy losing, especially the way they lost. But I got to believe this was what Coyle might not ever admit to it, but this has to be what Coyle was hoping and praying for. And that was, on the one hand, an outstanding performance by the guy coaching the team that you are trying to sell in this new community. Really, I think, may have even looked like the better team. And Maryland's good, and Maryland's extremely talented. On top of that, you're down 2, and you have an out-of-bounds play that you run, which presumably the coach called, which you run perfectly to set up an open three-pointer to go up 1, right? So you end up losing the game, or did you? More on that later regarding whether it should have been traveling or not. For whatever it's worth, one of my favorite college basketball voices, Rick Bozich, flat out believes it was 100% a travel.
Okay.
But more on that later. Point is, devastating loss for Colorado State. But again, the beauty of it for Coyle is nobody's going to come out of that game going, why do you want that guy? They looked well coached. They were in position to win the game, and the other team just made, one of those plays, or maybe even cheated, making it at the end of the game. So now his career there is over. And that means you can move forward with this announcement as quickly as today. Press conference tomorrow. Let's get the ball rolling. The journey of 1,000 miles needs to begin. It needs to begin fast. And now it will with this single leap of faith. And, we've talked about him before. The one scouting report I'd heard was undoubtedly a legitimate coach, a good coach. Knows how to coach, but, maybe not having an outsized personality, and perhaps here the home run hire would be both. Maybe you got to settle for a double or a triple. Maybe we'll find out Niko's got more personality than we think. I don't know. You probably have spoken to him more often than I have and can even speak to that. But the fact of the matter is, for the first time in a while, who was the coach before? Tubby was before Richard, right?
Yep.
For the first time since then, you can at least say, and this is important in terms of the leap of faith for me, you've hired a coach who's not training to learn how to become a coach. Because as much as I think Richard is proving that he is up to being a college basketball head coach, right? He had barely been head coaching then. He was not the guy who was at the top of the list. He was hired because, quite frankly, Norwood T got desperate.
They were out of ideas.
And they were out of ideas. They were out of options, they thought. So, to a certain extent, Richard Pitino had to learn on the job, okay? Ben Johnson had no head coaching experience and was forced to learn on a job in a quickly changing, what do you call it?
Environment.
Diabolical, unstable college basketball environment in the background, not just here, but across the board in terms of how it was changing, NIL, etc. This guy I think he's been a head coach now for 10 years. Now, it's always the question, well, this is the highest level he's coached at. Will it translate? That's fair. There are no answers on that. But he's not a coach in training. He knows how to run a program. He knows how to run a team. And that's no mean feat, given what we have tended to do, really, like I say, going all the way back to Tubby Smith, who obviously was experienced and had done it forever. The question on Tubby was, is he tired? Is this too much of a retirement job for Tubby? And we can argue about that forever. It's old news. But that, to me, is the most important part of this conversation is he's not learning a new craft. He's not. He's done it long enough. He knows how to run plays. He knows how to presumably handle egos, etc. And is he perfect at it? Maybe not, but he's done it. And at a place like this, where you're not going to have every choice that you want anyway, and where you're not going to get the perfect candidate, this, to me, was the no-brainer part. This was the required part. Don't try to strike gold. You know what? He's never coached, or he coached for 5 minutes, but everybody talks to me about him and says, this guy's the next big thing. You just got to let them grow into it. Those hires take place and sometimes succeed. This program, this team, dare I say, this athletics director could not take that risk again. Correct?
No.
Is that not fair?
It's fair. And you even go back to a week or so ago when they win the Mountain West tournament. You talked about it couldn't have gone better from a public relations standpoint for the U, that they have to play themselves into the tournament. They're probably not a tournament team if they don't win the Mountain West championship in Vegas. They do pretty decisively, play great, then get the big upset against Memphis, then go down to the wire. They become, because it's 2025 now and there's no such thing as Cinderella, apparently, because there's no low seeds. I think Arkansas is the lowest seed in the Sweet 16.
And nobody looks at them as a Cinderella,
They're
obviously.
coached by John Calipari, coming from the SEC. Like, they had America's attention for a little bit, and if you just stripped everything off and said you're going to get a Mountain West coach who's gone to the tournament 3 of the last 4 years and just almost knocked off a Big Ten team to go to the Sweet 16, you'd say we should hire that guy. And so it's a bonus that he's one of maybe 6 coaches coaching in the country that had season tickets to the Barn for 40 years and is interested in coming here.
Yeah. That's a nice bonus,
honestly, I don't even know if a guy like Niko is interested in the Minnesota job if he's not
It's a
from
very
15
fair
minutes
point.
from campus. So I think it's worked out fairly well. And obviously, given that it was done 10 minutes after they lost,
Yes.
this was the guy that Coyle had in mind from the jump.
Clearly. And again, I don't know how much smoke there was about West Virginia or anybody else. There's a couple more open jobs, I think. Who knows whether those programs had interest in him, but just shut it down. Get to it as quickly as you can. And they've obviously done that. I want to stay with this subject at least for one more segment. Some texts are already coming in. A couple more thoughts on the breaking news regarding Golden Gopher men's basketball, but a lot more ground to cover on a number of controversial subjects.
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something.
Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
Don't go. One of the interesting things in the Niko Medved resume to me, which you may have already known, if I understand it accurately, is he was at Furman once when the head coach was dismissed, but was picked over, was not selected to be the heir apparent, left, and almost considered, I think, at that point, stepping away from coaching for a minute or two, but ultimately chose not to, and then went back to be hired as the head coach. Is that accurate? Is that correct?
That sounds right.
Okay.
Because
it's just interesting.
Yeah.
You know, that you end up back, and that was his first head coaching job.
Furman
correct?
was.
Furman,
Yep.
right. So, if we do get a chance to talk to him tomorrow, that's one of the things I want to get into is that, you know, is that a hard pill to swallow, as the cliche goes, where I'm going to, oh, you didn't want me before, now you do? Or do you say, well, I want to be head coach. I can't let that worry me. I have the opportunity. They've come back to me, so let's go ahead and do it. Right?
I think after he left, he came here to coach at McAllister
Right.
and get a master's degree.
Got a master's, right? Yeah.
And then that's when he jumped in here for the year with Munson. The year Munson got fired, I think, and finished that year out and then went to CSU with Tim Miles, who we're trying to have on.
So he went back. Who's not gotten back to you yet, correct?
He hasn't.
So he was a student manager under Clem, correct? That's
Yes.
how far back he goes.
Yes, his senior year was the year before the Final Four year.
Okay, so we can't blame any of that on Ganglegate on him, as far as we know.
Well, you could ask him
Yeah, sure.
how many papers he wrote.
Why don't I start with?
I wouldn't start with it.
I'll start that. I'll make that the icebreaker.
Say congratulations.
Yeah. And then he'll go Kelvin Sampson on the bit, and it'll land immediately.
Or Roger Goodell.
And by the way, it's Kelvin, not Kevin. Did you hear about that rant?
No, who called him Kevin?
Well, nobody, at least in this situation. But apparently, after his game again, did they beat Gonzaga? Is that how they?
I think that sounds right.
Among other victories. Yep. So apparently, after the game, somebody asked Sampson, who is the Houston coach, correct?
Yep, gun belt tight.
Correct. Number 1 seed, correct?
They are.
Yeah.
And the reward, by the way, is they have to go to Indy to take on Purdue.
I saw that. Yeah.
And then if they win that, they get Kentucky.
Yeah, that's
in Indianapolis.
There won't be many Kentucky
No.
fans. Well, actually, Purdue doesn't travel great, but it's not bad.
It's an hour away.
It's an hour away, so that part's not
so anyway, Kevin Sampson?
So, yeah, and he's somebody asked him a question and alludes to Gonzaga. And Samson said, it's Gonzaga. It's not Gonzaga. I can't stand when that mispronunciation takes place. It's not that difficult to figure out. It's like, like my mom always told me years ago, when people call you Kevin, you have to correct them every time. It's not Kevin. It's Kelvin. So he went off on this diatribe about mispronunciation of
and
names.
Dean Blevins is just trying to get a question
he's just asking a strategical question. I think it was just but he's feeling his oats right now because he's on a run. And
great coach.
He's a great coach, and he's had a lot of fun there, and he definitely loved being on the Bumper to Bumper show many, many years ago. I'm sure he looks back at it as one of the high points.
Wonder if he remembers.
I doubt. No. Coaches, my guess is he doesn't, because I think most coaches, they're up here, and the rest of us are the little people.
That's
we're
true.
not all that meaningful.
That's true.
We're barely tolerated.
Not with Niko, though, because he's one of us.
He is one of us. I hope you're right about that. 64686 is the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Do we think, on the play in question, where Maryland gets the late bank shot in, I can't remember the name of the big man who...
Derek Queen.
Drove, okay. Do you view it as a certain travel? Do you view it as in college basketball they do call that as a travel? The NBA they might not, because when I saw it slowed down, what people said to me was, well, it's 2 steps. It's 2 complete steps before he releases the ball. But maybe I don't even understand traveling. I thought you could take. I know technically it's supposed to be 1.5 steps, I think. But what's the half? I don't know.
Well, 2.5, it's like the 1-2 jump is the half step, theoretically.
Right. So I didn't view it as being an egregious non-call. What did you think?
Well, I've heard here. I'll say it this way. I've heard it multiple times from people that are actual officials, because they were all out last night, right?
I'm sure,
and every reporter's calling every, Ed Hockley that they know to try to get the official ruling on it. So a lot of them were saying they didn't think it was a travel. I think it was. And a lot of people are saying, well, you get the gather step, whatever the gather step means. But I don't think in college you get the gather step. I don't think they have the gather step
attention to
like the
college.
NBA.
Right.
I know. So it did, especially when it slowed down and you look. And there's actually a couple of people in the background, a couple of Rube fans that are calling for the travel as the shot's going up.
Yeah.
Because it did, to me, look like a travel.
It's a tough way to lose.
It's a really hard way to lose.
Yeah.
And I know your guy 40 was talking about, well, regardless, you're not calling the travel in that situation. We're back to that.
Yeah,
So we can never, so a player can cheat then?
We can, however, call for a penalty shot.
I saw that.
In the closing, was it 19 seconds?
Yeah, Frozen Four.
Of the NCAA Frozen Four championship women's hockey game?
Right down here, right down the road.
Man, that's
not letting the players decide.
We might talk to Louie about that tomorrow.
So I do think it was a travel.
Yeah.
I would have had no problem if they called it being a travel. But there's a lot of people that say that it wasn't.
It would be interesting to see the analytics on how often in a game of that magnitude, end of the game, tournament, traveling's called. Because I'm guessing not a lot. I'm guessing that even though it shouldn't matter how much time is left in the game, that it often does. I don't know.
That was an unbelievable shot, by the way, too.
Yes, it was, because I didn't think it the angle he was finally at by the time he finished the drive, he had any shot of making that. I thought it was going to clank off the rim.
Yep.
And it was a bank, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, which was maybe the best way to take that shot, but it's a hard shot.
And the Colorado State kid was right in his
there,
face.
yeah. No,
it was great defense.
There's nothing you could do.
There's really nothing you could do about it.
Dan, the Gopher basketball hire is a yawn because the program is a yawn and has been for my entire life. I'm 53. We're told to care about it in the barn, yet the U does nothing to make us care. I'm a U grad, often embarrassed to say it when it comes to sports, even hockey. When we become relevant in the Big Ten, then we can look and say we made the right hire. Well, it's a cynical approach. I can't argue with it. I mean, there's some truth to that. It's my guess is Medved is aware of all of that. That part of the challenge anyway is that it's you're not going to win over. How are you going to win over people? Well, really, there's one way: become more competitive in the Big Ten, right? In terms of victories, in terms of winning percentage. I I care less about overall record. I just want this team. I mean, I think we'd celebrate if they could just be, if a coach would come in here and play 500 Big Ten basketball.
Yeah.
Even that is rare.
Very
extremely rare,
yes.
going all the way back to Clem.
Yep.
And then you kind of go from there. And whether, if maybe he's not as out there as PJ, out there in the sense of, big personality, but that can be rendered irrelevant if you improve it enough, if you bring it to a different place than we are accustomed to. But a lot of that skepticism on several levels is inevitable when it goes the way, whoever you want to blame for the last 4 years, even if you don't want to put much of it on Ben, the condition of the program is the condition of the program, and the lack of interest is clear and attendance is clear. So I can't, you're going to, that's part of what this program has had to deal with for a long time. And in Richard's case, even he acknowledged with us, it was not that he didn't win, but he didn't win enough, or there's sort of the inconsistencies year to year, right? That was a big issue while he was here. By the way, there was a late rumor, I don't know if it was started by his agent or not, that Iowa might be sniffing around him, but they went ahead and they hired Drake guy, correct?
Yes, McCollum.
Yeah, that's done.
Yep.
So
at my uncle's funeral in Iowa, that was a big topic of conversation on Saturday. Have you heard about the Patino rumors?
And were they?
I said, no, I'm trying to be president. Well, they were asking me what I thought, and I said, you'd be dumb not to.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's a little bit of a connection in that the athletic director there is Beth Getz, who was the interim
local
here,
angle, right?
under, with Norwood here. So there was that. But I was talking them into it. I said, I think it'd be great. It was pretty clear McCollum was their guy right out of the gate. They just tweeted out a picture of Dr. Tom and him from camp in 1986.
There you go.
So that's a wrap. So that's happening.
Yeah.
To that texter, though, talking about the U hasn't done anything to make us care about the barn or that section of it. I don't know how you feel about this, but when I've been talking to people about just the program and the job and everything the last few weeks, the one thing that I can say has consistently never been as strong in my lifetime, either as a fan or covering it, the feeling that it's not just about the coach at this point with Minnesota, and the school has to put its full weight or more weight behind the programs. I've never felt that ever to this level.
Right.
Have you?
Well, it's got to be, and it sounds good, but then it's got to be followed up with people who can do something about it contributing. Right. Well,
I'm not even saying the school is saying that. I'm saying
no, I understand.
The outside people.
But I'm saying the outside, I get what you're saying.
The public, I guess.
The public,
the public and the fans going, is the school going to care about it this time?
Well, and that's where in the proof will be in what the school itself, how it follows up. There's no question about that. But I think it's all of a piece, to tell you the truth. I think it's all those things put together for sure. Keep the texts coming. I've got a great butterfly effect coaching story for us to discuss. And I mentioned a done as item. We've got the bumper to bumper seal of approval. No Johnny Athletic today. He's going to join tomorrow. Chris Carter is scheduled to join in about.
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something.
Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
2 hours. Text pouring into the Bradshaw and Bryan KFAN text line reacting to the news that broke earlier today. Golden Gophers will officially present during a presser tomorrow the new men's basketball coach, Niko Medved. That's not a very well-kept secret. Has not been really for quite some time. But then again, as much speculation as there had been, you never know until you know, right? And the former Colorado State coach, one of us, is back here. There are a couple people via Twitter who are mocking the one of us part. Here's how I would view it. The only relevance for me about the one of us part is, well, there's two things. One, it's a presentable angle. It's always interesting when somebody comes back, quote unquote, home. I don't think there's any problem with that. And secondly, it's what you mentioned, that perhaps it made it more likely or cinched the deal that a guy who perhaps otherwise wouldn't view this job as being worthy of making a move if you're waiting to make a move from Colorado State, but did because of his emotional connection to the market. That's been my Eric Musselman theory for quite some time. We had a really nice conversation with Eric Friday while you were out. I'll give you more details on that later if you didn't hear about it. Other than that, I don't think, even as much as we kid about it among fans, it brings a single extra person to the dance. You know what I'm saying? I even here, as parochial as this town can be, that's the point of the bit, the one of us bit. But I don't think when push comes to shove, it matters. I don't think it moves the needle at all. The only relevance where I think it's worth talking about is, well, maybe it made him more interested in the job than he otherwise would be. To me, that's it. The rest of it's meaningless.
I think that is the relevance.
Yes.
That he says it's a dream job for me.
Exactly. And how many people are going to say that? He and Eric Musselman probably. Well, maybe Ryan Saunders. I don't know. But with some connections.
Exactly.
But the idea that, hey, I'm going to be more interested because this guy's one of us. No, that we already know that doesn't translate because people aren't sentimental when it comes to wins and losses. They are not. In the end, no matter where the guy's from or gal, if the team's no good, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to mess with it because it's not with it and wow, it's not fashionable, it's not interesting. So to me, that's where it matters. A texter comes in from Blaine. Dan, I was the Associate Chief Information Officer for 2 years at the U. The President and Board of Regents view every dollar as a wasted dollar. They believe all dollars should go to research and administration salaries. They have no vision to understand how to use successful sports teams to drive revenue, citizen engagement, political support, and financial support. They see the sports issue as a this versus that instead of a situation that could benefit all parties. I'm guessing, did you write that? Was that under an assumed name?
I'm not from Blaine, no.
Okay,
I'm not trying to throw you off.
All right, fair enough.
I don't have a burner.
Because I think it's an old subject that we've talked about, and I know your view on it as well. And look, if you're a sports fan, it is convenient to remind universities that you don't know how much further you can get across the board if you properly exploit, if you want to use a cynical term, or take advantage of the doors that can be opened through successful sports programs. It is convenient because if all you care about is sports, you may be saying that for all the wrong reasons. But it's true. It's been proven time and again across the country. And it has constantly, in the decades I've been here, it's clear. Back more in Inkster and Wretch days, especially when I would be writing columns about stuff like this, you'd hear this and sense this all of the time. Now, you want to blame Clem? I'm willing to a little bit, even though it's a long way from here to there. But who said this just the other day? Somebody said this, that some of the you could say the academic paranoia or paranoia from other parts of the school outside of sports, a huge part of that was born by Ganglegate, by that scandal, the academic fraud scandal, which I know, don't text me, it looks stupid now and everybody's cheating on everything and it just was so overdone. That was then. The reality is that if you're the quote unquote academic who already looks down on sports and says that's not what we're about here, you were handed really disturbing ammunition to say, this is why. I'm not going to look how embarrassing this has become for our university. And Mason has told us that the guardrails that were put in place, and he was there, he's got no reason to lie about it, after the scandal affected his program, presumably probably affected several others, where the places of reason about what's fair to expect, what we should be willing to do, it was eliminated. That no, we're not even going to be within what 10 yards of anything that might be viewed as a little over the line. And it's probably taken, if it's not still there to a certain extent with the leftovers, a lot of time to get past that. And that set the tone. How many people, I'm sure you've heard it, it set the tone for decades.
Yeah.
And at some point, you got to move past it.
Right.
You can't blame everything on Ganglegate and Clem, right? I mean, how many years are we removed from that?
Almost 30.
Almost 30.
Yeah.
But if you already have that bent, that contributed to it. But more generally, this is where I don't know if Coyle is very effective as a salesperson, because there's so much evidence to suggest that even if all you care about is academics, you can get stuff out of successful programs where people they end up donating more of their money. They feel more of a kinship. It may be irrational, given one would assume the other stuff that a school does is more important, teaching young minds, right, et cetera. But it does all fit together, and I, to this day, don't know if that's completely understood. If you go back to when Coyle fired Rich Pitino, Star Tribune did a story that I think really, if you look back on it now, to this day, tells the story about the Ben Johnson hire. And again, you can believe Ben didn't have a chance on the basis of things around him. We're past having that discussion. But the fact of the matter is, the story indicated the degree to which Joan Gable was concerned, and understandably, about the fact that no head coaches of color existed in the program at that point. I don't think there were literally any, at least on the men's side. And there were indirect quotes indicating that Gable has made it clear. In fact, there was a direct quote from Kevin Warren, who then was the commissioner of the Big Ten, saying they're aware, Minnesota's aware of our knowledge of that fact, and almost like we're watching. So if we're being honest, a significant part of the reason that Ben got hired was a feeling that we've got to do, we like Ben as a coach. We think he's got a chance to become something and maybe learn on the fly. Still a mistake, but that's what they're thinking. And part of the way I think they talk themselves into that is like, look, we don't have a good track record on this. So here's a way we can partly rectify that as well. I mean, I get texts all the time from people or emails from people saying that they believe that Coyle was not completely in Ben's corner. Again, not because he didn't think he'd have a chance to be a head coach, but because of the concern of the gamble you're taking. But that Gable had made it clear, we're watching this thing. Kevin Warren flat out did, and that contributed to the deal as well. And it's hard to argue with that concern. But on the other hand, we're back to your best chance to succeed as a university in terms of all your athletics is to make hires that give you the best chance to take the various programs in a better direction. To that extent, raise all boats?
Rising tide lifts all boats.
Lifts all boats. All boats perhaps can be lifted as well.
Going back to what you were talking about, the Clem scandal.
Yes.
Where I think it hurt them, because you're right, at some point, it's almost 30 years ago, you got to move on. But it definitely made them glacially slow to adapt to the world that was surrounding it. Just my observations from it.
They had extra people hired whose job basically was vigilance, was it not?
Probably. Yeah, I don't know that for a fact, but I would imagine yes. But just in terms of how college sports were then changing, part of the problem, I think, at DU is it's been that they've been chasing forever. Whatever the arms race has been for that current time, they were behind on it.
Yes.
Because they didn't have, whether it was leadership at the top, vision at the top, whatever it was, people seeing where things were going and being okay with, we need to do this with the arena, or we need a practice facility, or this is what we have to pay for head coaches and assistant coaches, or now this is what NIL is, and we've got to be front of mind with that. And I think the problem is the public gets fatigued by always having to be told what the next new thing is that we don't have and that we're falling behind on. But the reality is, I think they've, coming out of the Clem thing, and we always talk about the arena renovation stuff and building a new arena. They actually were kind of ahead of arena renovations in the mid-'90s when they did the barn loss. Or at least they weren't behind.
Well, they weren't behind, yeah.
Right? It wasn't like it was a big deal to spruce up the barn, believe it or not, and put chair backs. It used to be all benches. Well, is it not also fair to say later, if you advance the story, as disparaged as Norwood is and as many mistakes as that regime made,
he was instrumental in some of the improvements in terms of
Athletes Village.
Exactly.
Where it is now. They don't have it without him.
They don't have it. And
they didn't have all the money at the time.
Right.
Louis was in charge of the fundraising for that, or a part of it. They didn't get all the money for that they needed, but Norwood and David Benedict and the people there said, well, we still have to build it. We can't just wait for someone else to come in.
And he wasn't wrong.
He was right.
Yeah.
That's where they are now. Everybody loves it. It's a big reason why it's a great place, why the athletes love it, the coaches love it, but They had to borrow the last X amount of dollars to get that done, but that's what you have to do sometimes.
Yeah, right.
Because it had been forever that they've been talking about the facility stuff, and they never got it done. And Norwood was the one that said, well, we got to get a shovel in the ground because we promised Tubby Smith the practice facility, and he's gone now for 2, 3, 4 years. Like that, so we got to get this thing done. Are
we assuming he's going to bring some players with him, and the way it works anymore? Because
probably
it was interesting. Eric said, and I didn't check this. I have no reason to doubt him, that he in the past philosophically has not brought players with him. Eric Musselman.
Okay.
Because he just felt like it was like he didn't like the feeling. Now he kind of almost seemed to hint that now that everybody's moving everywhere, maybe all bets are off in that regard.
Right.
But
maybe
are we assuming? Are there a couple of heir apparents that have eligibility that we think are likely to be brought along? Where's the speculation on that?
I should have been more prepared for that, because I know there's a couple that people would be interested in. I don't remember which guy was a senior, which guy was not.
That's one of the interesting questions for him is, are there any coaches, do some coaches even today with the movement who stick to a philosophy that, no, I don't feel comfortable bringing people with? Or is it, again, I sense now it's all bets are off, and you're bringing, I got a player who's with me 1 minute and might be gone the next. I mean, Richard Pitino kidded us, but he had Tanjay for like 30 seconds.
Yes.
And then he moved on.
He actually sent me the committed graphic that Tanjay had posted.
Yeah.
It's good.
That's brilliant.
My Wisconsin relatives got a kick out of that one. Good.
So, my assumption at this point is if there's somebody he thinks can help him at this level and get him a head start, and that player wants to come, he's going to do it. He's not going to think twice about doing it. But I guess I don't know. I don't know if that's something that he has any track record on, or he has ever made any statements about it.
I think Kyan Evans, one of the guards, is a sophomore. I think I saw his name floated around by Gopher fans as a guy that might come.
Okay.
But again, who knows? I would definitely imagine yes. I know the good player for Drake is probably heading to Iowa now with McCullum.
Right.
Like that. And that was part of McCullum's big success at Drake this year, is he brought, I think, 4 starters from his D2 team, and they just ripped through the Missouri Valley. So especially if you can go up a level, like this obviously is for anybody playing for Colorado State to come to the Big Ten.
It's basically how the Indiana football coach got on the map. Siggs, right? And that's how he got on the map.
And that's to your point about being the front porch. Like, your school is a great example of that. Like, think about the publicity Indiana University got for 6 months, certainly the last 2 months, for him getting out there, the Google Me stuff. The Signetti T-shirts,
yes,
McAfee going there, Game Day going there, Fox going there.
We've also quoted for years. I'll find the stories because they're relevant again. The stories that are written by legitimate news outlets like Wall Street Journal, their sports department, that again lay out how much fundraising goes up at various schools, how much more money comes in simply because the football team's good.
Yeah.
And you can say, again, that's really thin. I mean, shouldn't you be more committed to that? That's not the question.
People like it.
The question is if that's how people reconnect in a way that everybody wins, then everybody wins. Real quick here, I mentioned butterfly effect. I don't know if you saw this story, but it suggests that perhaps the most valuable or most important coaching decision, was made in terms of the big dance this year, not by a school that was even represented in the big dance this year, but by one that wasn't. SMU Mustangs. So, as the story goes, they fire their head coach last year. Okay? Rob Lanier was his name.
Okay.
It's the last offseason. They fire him. Okay? So, at that point, SMU decides, what did I say? His name is Lanier, correct? So exactly 1 year and 3 days ago, they hire a guy named Andy Enfield from where?
USC.
Southern Cal.
Yep.
Southern Cal says,
we interviewed him for the Minnesota job, the Patino year.
Did we?
Yeah, he was from Florida Gulf Coast.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
He interviewed for like 10 minutes, I
So
think.
USC needs a coach. Southern Cal. They call Eric Musselman. And maybe Muss was ready as he talked to us Friday. I think he was pretty honest about saying, I got a kid getting older, and in effect, he hinted, I'm not sure that I want the formative years, high school years, to be in Fayetteville, even though we enjoyed our time there. And I think he alluded to that being part of the deal. Bottom line, whatever the reason, They hire him from Arkansas. So now Arkansas's got an opening. Coach Cal is looking for a job because he steps down under duress in Kentucky, right, where it's the old
long time.
You get tired of the same voice. He'd been very successful, but whatever. It was probably time for both parties. So he goes to Arkansas. Well, that means now Kentucky also has an opening. And who do they hire?
Mark Pope.
They hire Pope, a former Kentucky Wildcat who won a national championship there in 1996. Where had Pope been most recently?
BYU, right?
Yes. So they need a new job. They get Kevin Young, a longtime NBA assistant who really, I don't even think had made the NCAA tournament as a player. And now, look at them. They are all in.
That's a good team,
the
too,
Sweet
by 16.
The way. It is a good team.
BYU.
But this isn't the first time there's been this kind of butterfly effect or domino effect where one move starts a chain reaction. But it is interesting in this case. Coach Cal is making his first trip to the Sweet 16 since 2019. Kevin Young has BYU in the tournament's second weekend for the first time since 2011. And then Mark Pope, as this is a nice Wall Street Journal story by Robert O'Connell and Lane Higgins, Pope has won at Kentucky with a roster he rebuilt entirely in a single off season. So you never know what move can start a chain of events that changes lives, right? Changes fortunes, the whole bit. By the way, I believe, was Niko head coach only 1 year at Drake?
Yes.
Okay. And that's another thing that gets interesting about where are the ethics on that? Because who was the former LSU coach who was out in disgrace and then was rebuilding his career via the team that pulled the upset?
First of all, love the description.
Yes.
You're talking about Will Wade.
Will Wade.
Yeah, Will Wade is his name. That's a great
So
out in disgrace.
The Louisiana school where that had the first round upset. What
McNeese
school?
State.
McNeese. So, there's, in his case, I think he gave him 2 years. In fact, I think the AD said, all right, look, he promised us 2 years. We knew he wasn't going to stay here. But he did give us 2 years, so they're probably not that mad. But wasn't where did the West Virginia coach go to?
He went to Indiana.
Yeah, he went to Indiana.
Your guy.
He'd only been there 1 year, West Virginia, correct?
Yes.
And that's where, and there's a lot of anger there about, again, loyalty and the ethics. And maybe now, because everybody's moving everywhere. Wade was hilarious. After their one victory, basically said, because everybody was assuming you were gone, so we didn't discuss this on the air with you, but Barkley, among others, as the stories intensified that Wade was going to go to North Carolina State and had already agreed to a deal, was how dare you do this to the kids? They got a basketball game coming up. You've put them in an impossible situation. And the McNeese kids were so devastated that they knocked off Clemson.
And they almost ran him out of the gym.
And in the first half, they did run him out of the gym, and then it tightened up. And so, and after the game, or the in-between day before their next game, they got handled pretty good by Purdue, by the way. Wade basically said, no, there's no secrets here. I mean, half the players, check the phones of like 5 of my players right now, even before we're eliminated with the offers that they're going to have. Come on, let's stop pretending that we're not all in the deep end on this nonsense. And maybe that's where we're at, where it doesn't matter that after 1 year, even though in the case of the West Virginia, what's his name, the guy going in Indiana?
Darian DeVries.
He basically, you go back, this is the scary part, you go back to the press conference from DeVries, and it's like, I can't see myself anywhere else for a long, long time, that kind of thing.
Love it here in Morgantown.
And you get haunted, and so, but that's sort of the wild, I don't even know why Wild West properly conveys it now. We need a new term for it that goes well beyond that. And we got into this yesterday. It may be a coincidence, may not. There are really no Cinderellas already, which is, I think, missed by people who like that angle. But is this the era we're heading into? Inevitably, if you've got mid-major players, I mean, we basically turned mid-majors into what? A minor league for the big schools. And among the big schools, we've turned that sort of movement into, it's like almost like NBA free agency, right? And even, you could say, moving up from a different division, you're seeing more of that. And I assume it is going to make it harder for the mid-majors to have the kind of breakthroughs that we've grown accustomed to. Because the minute somebody does anything, they could be gone, 15 minutes later.
And even though I think Colorado State's about to go into the new Pac-12 and other schools are making jumps to try to solidify themselves, to be in a big institution like this, the Big Ten or the SEC, it's where you want to be if you're a fan and you're a coach. By the way, Niko's old boss, Tim Miles, can join you next segment.
Oh, excellent.
He just texted me.
Oh, that's even better.
The San Jose State head coach now hired Niko at Colorado State years and years and years ago, worked with him for 6 years. He'll join you next segment.
We haven't had Miles. By the way, you and I are both accused of a tired Richard Pitino obsession. And I said yesterday, if obsession is defined as having him on the radio show 1 year apart for the only time, and so in other words, every year having him on once, then I plead guilty to the. But I, in all honesty, said, you want me to be less obsessed? Build something here I can pay attention to and connect with and relate to and report about and have talk radio debates about. Then it would be fine. I'd have probably less of the obsession with any of the local angles that we tend to get caught up in part because we got nothing else.
Well, to the allegation of me being obsessed much more than you, I also plead guilty. I mean, I think it is fair I have a healthy obsession with the guy.
Well, and I've said he's a good guest. That's the other thing. In fact, then I'm almost mad that we haven't had him on more often. I mean, my intent was if they won, they beat Michigan State.
It was a hell of a game,
It was a good game that I thought we would have him on again. Yeah, exactly.
I thought they were going to do it.
Yeah, Michigan State, they are, when they get going a little bit.
Yeah.
They do.
See how quick Pitino called a couple timeouts?
Yeah, he was down to one throughout most of the second half.
But anytime they went on like a 5-0 run, he banged one. Yeah. Because you're exactly right. That's how quick they go.
That's how they do it.
The Izzo head shake into the handshake, too. I wait for it every time.
You love it.
Well, you knew he was going to do it.
Yeah,
I'm in the 16th, Sweet 16 in 27 years, but you're a hell of a coach, man.
I don't know how I beat you. Yes, I don't know how he did it.
That's like the only reason I stayed up for the end of the game, because I was annoyed that they were going to lose. And I go, I'll see if Pitino gets the old Izzo head shake. And he did.
He got it.
He absolutely got it.
It's tradition. Tim Miles giving us a scouting report on a guy who used to work for him, the next Golden Gopher men's basketball coach. Stay tuned. That's next.